Star Wars. It's a franchise that keeps on growing. It witnessed over 45 years of content. There's been some good, and there's been some bad, and there's also been some mid stuff that I want to rank in this video. Now, I do want to clarify some rules. And the first rule is that everything that you're going to see in this ranking, I have already discussed and reviewed. So stuff that I haven't in my ranking series, which there's going to be a playlist for, you can go watch all that for more information on this stuff. I'm only covering the 28 or so stuff that I've ranked and reviewed. That you can see the full, rankings on my community page. Think of this as more as an update to that ranking that's going to continue on forward. And I may do this again next year because there are going to be new stuff coming. So, secondly, I'm going to try not to spoil anything. I'm going to try not to, at least, because some of the stuff I do want you to check out at least a little bit of, because I know not everything Star Wars is made for you. But it's good to try some new things out, and what place to start than with Star Wars? Finally, with this ranking, I'm going to be trying to be as real and frank with you. Some of this stuff sucks, some of this stuff is good, and I'm going to be real with you. This ranking is going to reflect what I think of now, and people are going to have their different opinions. I get it. Don't hate me. Just, we all have different opinions on stuff. We're all different here. I don't want you to be like, oh, why you put this here and that there. And my opinions on stuff is going to be real. It's going to be frank, because I like stuff that people don't. I'm just putting that out there. So, with that out of the way and all those rules aside, let's get into the ranking.
You're like family to me.
Coming in last place, we have the holiday special. This piece of crap film should not exist. In all seriousness, this is a terrible film. I don't even call it a film. It's a parody. This isn't even Star Wars. This is some parody that some people made. I'm gonna be honest, this is a waste of time. It's on YouTube. I made my own rendition of it, cutting out all the boring parts. This is what it is. It's a giant parody that got the original actors, and that's all it really is. How this was made is beyond me. No wonder George Lucas wants to destroy all the copies. No wonder none of the actors want to talk about this. It's terrible. Don't watch it. Just don't. Even if you want to watch it, don't. It'll save you an hour and a half, or in the case of watching my video on it, it'll save you 40 minutes. I should not even be talking about this anymore. This is a terrible thing. Below hell. This should be in hell, for all I'm concerned. Honestly, if I had a time machine, I would go back in time and just stop this film from existing. It only premiered once on cable. Thank God for that. No one cares about it. All that really came out of it was Life Day. That was it. Coming in at number 27, we have Ewoks Caravan of Courage. Oh boy, this is a film that, it's a film. At least it's not the holiday special where it's a parody. This is the actual story where they're trying to tell something, and it's just very boring, very mundane, and it's not really that exciting. The first part of it, kind of interesting, but it just gets so boring. And it's just your typical adventure story where the kids are trying to get their parents. That's all it is for like an hour and a half. And it's boring. The characters are boring. You can tell they're trying to recreate the spark of the original trilogy, and it's not working. The only thing I guess works is the special effects. That's the only thing I like about it. It's practical, using stop motion. That's the only good thing about this film. The rest of it is just pure, boring crap. The only people who grew up in the 80s will find nostalgic for. Coming in number 26, we have Ewoks, A Battle for Endor. I like this one more than the last two because it is actually a film. It actually is quite decent. I mean, in saying that, it is still the problem with the first film, except it's a bit better. It's more focused. I mean, everything in the first film was undone in like the first 5 minutes, which I find hilarious. And I do enjoy this, but I'm never going to watch it again because it is still boring. But also, this film was very convoluted, because the main villain wants this power thing, and it's just a spaceship, and it's confusing. I don't know why this is a story. Also, the title of the film is very inaccurate. So there isn't really a battle for Endor. It's just a conflict that's happening. Coming in number 25, we have Droids. Yeah, the Droids show. This show sucks, but I placed it here because It's Star Wars, at least you get Star Wars Adventures, really. This is probably the most painful show to watch. C-3PO is just the most annoyingest character when he's by himself. And it's probably the most hard to watch show. It's boring, it's slow pace, every episode dragged on. I guess you could say it has action in it, but because it was in the 80s, the action's all toned down because, you know, God forbid the kids see a blaster going off, God forbid. But, you know, even though I hate this show more than the Ewok films, I still place it above them because at least it's Star Wars. You get stormtroopers and at least some exploration of space and new planets, so yeah, that's all there really is to it. 24, we got the Ewok show. Now, the Ewok show I saw it was going to be good. The first season was good, sort of. I mean, it was better than I would have expected it to be. You know, for a show in the 80s, which has toned down violence and cutesy characters and stuff like that. Yeah, the proper exploration of Endor, but then season 2 comes around and gave me the middle finger. The show I was expecting was in season 2, so this show gave me a middle finger because it gave me hope. By the end of season 1, I was like, oh my god, I had hoped this would be a good show from the 80s, but no, season 2 sucks. This is basically the Smurfs, but in Star Wars, except it's just kind of more painful in season 2 because they're a typical kids show that has no substance and it's just there. Some episodes are good. There's one episode in season 2 which I like, but I'm never watching the show again.
We have technology.
Number 23, the Clone Wars movie. I liked the first 25 minutes of this film, then the rest of it just dragged on. This was not even supposed to be a movie. This was just George Lucas doing what he does best and looking at some 3D animation and going, yeah, that's the future, let's put it on the big screen. You know, everyone needs to see this. Even though it was going to be seen anyway, but this was supposed to be the first 4 episodes of season 1, and if it was just that, it'll be fine. It'll be right where every other episode of season 1 of the Clone Wars is, but no. This is a film. And it just drags on and on. Don't watch the Clone Wars movie, just don't. Start with, you know, the Clone Wars show, because you'll have a much better time. Number 22, we have Forces of Destiny. These things don't overstay their welcome. It doesn't drag. It's a fine piece of Star Wars entertainment. Basically, all across the galaxy, you got these different characters doing different things across time, and it's all the female characters, because this show is meant to sell toys. As all these shorts really are, just to sell some toys. The toy line failed because there's only 2 seasons of this show, or shorts I mean, so yeah, it's just kind of here. It's just a thing that exists. Number 21, we have Resistance. This was a promising show, but it kind of fell flat because none of the characters are really that memorable. And tonally, this show isn't really in the same vein as a lot of the other animated shows. And it's kind of a disappointment. I mean, I think it was mishandled a lot because it's on Disney Channel. I mean, I do like the voice acting and, you know, the characters I do kind of like, but I just, midway through, I remember I had like a existential crisis where I just wanted to watch something else because I just don't care. I mean, this is the best sequel trilogy media we've ever had because it explores the First Order very well and how they grew to power, and you get to see all that. Honestly, if you can get past all the toned down stuff like the characters acting all silly sometimes, and, you know, the fact there isn't really any violence, and the show kind of goes for more younger audience, obviously, and the characters kind of do younger things, like they act childish, you know what I mean? But if you can get past that, it's a fine show, but I wish it was kind of on a different channel to really get its full potential, because this type of show could have been successful if it wasn't on Disney Channel and it wasn't like so monitored. It's just disappointing because I wanted the show to succeed because it's a show in a sequel trilogy, you know. But I guess we have to wait for another show to be set in a sequel trilogy to really have the potential of this era explored. But as of for now, this show just exists.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Coming in 20th place, we have Attack of the Clones, and I should like the story of Attack of the Clones. I should, but I don't. And that's because of two main reasons. One of them is the film itself. There is an editing problem in Attack of the Clones, where the two stories, the Obi-Wan story and the Anakin story, they do a ping-pong effect. And I did not notice this until a recent, rewatch, and I noticed that during the middle of the film in Act 2, it just kept going back and forth. It was a ping-pong effect, and it made it really hard to get invested in the story. One scene would end, then it goes to the other story, then that ends. There's all these scenes that just go back and forth, and this is only in the middle part of the film. The beginning and end doesn't have that. So, I don't know why George Lucas decided to have a ping-pong effect in the middle part of the film, where combining a lot of the scenes involving Obi-Wan and also Anakin and Padme would have made the film much more smoother and much more invested. In terms of the story itself, the characterization of Anakin is the only problem I have. I like every character in this film except for Anakin when he's with Padme. When he's with Obi-Wan, when he's, doing anything else, I like him except when he's with Padme because he is a creep. And the film lets you know that. Because I noticed during the film that there are several points where the camera kind of just lingers on Anakin. I don't know how to describe it, just putting his hand on Padme's shoulder and arm and stroking his finger. It's really weird, and it happens several times, and Anakin's just a creep. Worst portrayal of Anakin, and that's what really ruins this film. This is supposed to show Anakin in a much more mature state, but I understand the whining, but when he's a creep, it makes it really hard, especially with the Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith. His characterization is much more better, and I'd rather watch young 9-year-old Anakin than the 19-year-old creepy Anakin. If they were to get rid of the whole creepy factor with Anakin, I would have put this, way higher.
A fish! A fish!
19th place, we have The Phantom Menace. Now, I should like The Phantom Menace, but I don't, because this film has tonal issues, and this is better than Attack of the Clones, but The Phantom Menace is a film where you have Jar Jar Binks, you have the underwater city, all the characters speaking in accents and, doing a bunch of silly stuff, there's pod racing. But on the other hand, you have serious politics and invasions and, political turmoil, and you have the Chosen One prophecy. This film has a lot of tonal messages. At some points, this film feels like a 90s film, but other points it's real serious, and it's like, you should have stuck to one thing. And if you would have stuck to one tone, whether that be, a movie meant for little kids or a really serious political drama, one of those would have made the film better, because you can't do both. They're two opposites that really pull the film apart. And also, another thing, a lot of the characters, specifically in The Phantom Menace, talk like robots. And something that's really obvious, like with Padme or the decoyer, sounds like a robot. Like, the humans in The Phantom Menace sound more robotic than the actual battle droids that are robots. Like, it's so weird. I don't know why. I mean, George Lucas is a bad director, The whole point of a director is to direct the actor into giving a performance for that particular scene. And every scene is just some acting very monotone. But I still like The Phantom Menace. It's a really straightforward story, but it's also convoluted at the same time. But it's fun to watch, every couple of years, because there's a lot, like I said, there are memes and, the prequel trilogy, so I do like that. So I do like The Phantom Menace, but it's not a film that is something that I would want to rewatch all the time.
Worst cosmic wars ever. I will only see it 3 more times. Today.
18th place, we have The Last Jedi. Now, where should I begin with this film? The most controversial film that has ever came out in Star Wars. I should say, I like 50% of this film, and I hate 50% of this film. I am completely neutral. I know. Everything that I hate about this film is something that I like. I probably stuff that I like. I like the way this film looks. It's the best looking Star Wars film. I, for the most part, like the acting. I I like a lot of little things I'm not remembering, but I remember more of the bad things. And one main thing that I think I should cover, the elephant in the room, is Luke Skywalker and his characterization. Rian Johnson was so close to making him a really good character and a character that would have a satisfying arc, but the problem is that we do not know why he is the way he is, and Rian Johnson does not explain that. All we get is a vague sentence that can be interpreted in many different ways. And if all I'd be done was all Luke had to say was, I went to the dark side, and everything would have made sense. That's why I was on the island. Also, the whole Canto Bite stuff should have been scrapped. Finn and Rose should stay on the ship. The entire B plot should have just been an Among Us story. There's an imposter on the ship, a First Order spy. Who it is, it's like a mystery. I mean, Rian Johnson literally directed Knives Out, which is a murder mystery film. Why not do that for Star Wars? But no, each character had their own plot, and it does muddy up the film. It's 2.5 hours, like it's actually 2 hours and 40 minutes. It should not have been that long. You could have cut down a bit of it. Don't really want to watch it again, but it's still a well-made movie for the most part. 17th place, we have The Book of Boba Fett. My god, this film has fallen in my rankings. I don't like this show. I really don't. The first of the Disney Plus shows, and it's because this is not really a Boba Fett show. Boba Fett's character has been assassinated in this show. Now I should say, like with The Last Jedi, this is a well-made show, well choreographed, well filmed. Everyone is giving their all in this. But my god, they just ruined Boba Fett's character. He's no longer this scary, menacing bounty hunter. He's now this humble guy that is just this gangster dude, and he's a kind gangster dude, a kind one. But they need a proper story, and I understand. I'm okay with Boba Fett losing his edge and being more kind, but you need to, edge us on, give us a story to tell us why. And the flashbacks do not do that, because he was already kind before he met the Tuskens. In his very brief time before that, and it's like, who the hell made that decision? Because it really ruins the arc. I would have been fine, because the rest of the show hinges on the flashbacks. For the most part, the first 4 episodes are completely pointless. Honestly, the Mandalorian stuff is the best part of the show. Everything but Boba Fett is good.
He might want to say 1 or 2 more things.
Oh my god. Get out of my chair. Get out of my life.
16th place, we have Solo: A Star Wars Story. This film I like, but a problem with this film is that it is slow. Because there's a point where it does kind of get boring. I remember when I watched it in the movie theater, it does have boring parts in it, especially after the Kessel Run scene, which was really good, by the way. I still enjoy that this is a different type of film where it's kind of a smuggler, cowboy-esque film. And if this was made a couple years later, it would have been a Disney Plus show, a 6 to 7 episode, and it would have been stretched out, and I probably would have hated it more. But because it's a 2-hour movie, everything's concise, and it's a film that's just fine. There's nothing much to say about it. It's just a cool experience in a different part of the galaxy with no Jedi or Sith, well, except for Maul. After the troubled production of this film, I'm surprised it was as good as it was, but when I mean good, I mean it's just acceptable and fine. And if it was on cable, or if we had to rewatch it again, I would happily watch it again, because it is nothing's offensive in this film, but it is, like I said, boring in some parts, so that's why it's at this part of ranking.
That is not part of the lore at all.
15th place, we have The Rise of Skywalker. This is a fun film, and you may say, oh, this film is stupid, it's worse than The Last Jedi. Not to me. I feel like people are missing out. This is supposed to be a fun film. Right from the get-go, you're just going, and it's just action. And this is it. This film is meant for people who love sci-fi, and I know this film is kind of anti-Star Wars, the same as The Last Jedi, where, Star Wars is fantasy, but there's a lot of sci-fi elements in The Rise of Skywalker, and a lot of it doesn't make sense. For anyone that is a sci-fi nerd, they'll love it. I'm not a complete sci-fi nerd. I mean, I do like sci-fi stuff, but this film goes overboard with it. Palpatine coming back is stupid, but it's just, crazy. It's just ape shit crazy, you know what I mean? Everything about this film is just go, go, go. There's no stopping. Scenes don't have an emotional impact, but the fact that a film like this was made with production hell. This is what happens when you don't have a plan for a trilogy. The Rise of Skywalker happens, where it's just last-minute attempts to connect everything together, which doesn't work. Does the stuff make sense in there? Does this make sense with the lore? Not at all, but it's still a fun film.
Corporate needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture. They're the same picture.
14th, we have The Force Awakens. To end off the rankings for the sequel trilogy, I like The Force Awakens the most. This is nostalgic for me. I do like this film a lot. I like the story, even though, yes, it's similar to A New Hope, but it's in a different vein. A lot of people misinterpret The Force Awakens plot, and they're like, oh, it's the same as A New Hope, but it's different. It's more, it's like if you take the plot of A New Hope and remake it. I wonder if Disney wanted to remake the original trilogy, but couldn't because George Lucas said no. But I still like this film. The characters are great. The returning characters are great. And there's nothing negative really to say about it. I know people have made hour-long videos criticizing this film, but I don't really have much negativity to say about this film. It's just a good film. I mean, in terms of expanding Star Wars, there isn't really much there, but it's just a good film, and I wish the rest of the sequel trilogy had this vibe that The Force Awakens had, but it was dropped after this film, and I think that was a shame. 13th place, we have Clone Wars, a micro-series, that version of Clone Wars. And I do like this. My opinions have changed since I originally, reviewed this, and I like how this show works. Because I like how, in Volume 1, you get the Clone Wars. And in Volume 2, you get the Clone Wars. This show is just showing how the Clone Wars worked. And, the problems I still have about this. Characters and the way they fight and the way they act don't really fit in with their movie counterparts. And I still think in my headcanon this is just what people imagine a Jedi being rather than what actually happened. Even if I were to watch this back, back in the day, I would be like, yeah, this is not happening in the real Star Wars canon. But I still like this thing, especially Volume 2. I still like that, having this film that feels like it's Rogue One, sort of, where it's taking place right before the film. The only negative I have is that this was made during the prequel trilogy, so stuff wasn't really developed as much, like characterization, with General Grievous and Asajj Ventress. You kind of were expecting them to die if they weren't really in the film. Even if they were, their characterizations were changed, there was General Grievous, and kind of the plot points in these micro-series doesn't really connect. This is just a cool, fun little thing that you can watch on Disney+, or if you want to watch them individually, you can watch it on YouTube.
They are requesting a call sign.
It's, Rogue. Rogue One.
Oh, that's why they call it that.
12th place, we have Rogue One. I have mixed opinions about Rogue One, because when I first saw the film, I was like, oh, the first 2 acts are boring and not really relevant, but, it could be because I watched Andor, but I do like Rogue One more. I get the vibe of Rogue One. The stuff that happens in the first 2 acts do mean stuff. This film is about the regular people in the Star Wars galaxy, because up to that point, everything was about the main heroes. Stuff happened to them. You gotta see their journey. But to the average, everyday people, it kind of sucks. And this film talks about sacrifice, about someone else taking over, and you see that at the end of the film, and it's great. It's basically a film about, people finding this battle station, they have to deliver it to the rebellion. And you get to see that. And, one line of dialogue in the opening crawl, one sentence in the opening crawl made a 2-hour film. That's nothing short of incredible. And Rogue One is going to stand the test of time as the best Disney Star Wars film. 11th, we have Kenobi. I like the majority of Kenobi, I really do, but the one problem I have with this show is Reva. She does not connect to the main story at all, and it is kind of tacked on. I know, you have to have a main character for a new product. I know, it can't be all familiar characters, I get it, but there are other new characters in the show. You didn't need Reva. she was pointless until the last episode. Nothing against the actress, but I like a lot of what Vader does in this. I like what Obi-Wan does. This is a connective tissue between the prequels and the original trilogy. I know people hate this show, but I don't. It's meant to do what it did, and it's just a connective tissue to the two trilogies. It did what it did, and that was my expectation. I think people expect this to be way more, like, grandiose than it was ever supposed to be. Also, the Leia chase scene is kind of ridiculous, but that's what it is. It's a connective tissue. Some stuff feels like it's from the prequel trilogy, other stuff feels like it's from the original trilogy. It's a mishmash of both, and I kind of like it.
Oh my god! Oh jeez! Oh my god!
Top 10, we have Tales of the Jedi coming in 10th place. These 6 small episodes are really good. The Dooku episodes are amazing, while the Ahsoka episodes are great. I love all 6 of these. Seeing how Dooku came to be the Sith Lord he became was amazing. And I hope there's a season 2 to this. I hope we get more spin-off shows like this, like Tales of the Sith, Tales of the Bounty Hunters, that type of stuff, because this format works very well, and most people really like this. And I'm one, I really like this.
I don't have friends. I got family. 9th
place, we have the Bad Batch. I really think the Bad Batch is underrated. A lot of people think this show is a disappointment. It's just kind of there. I disagree. This story feels like a post-war story that, unfortunately, a lot of veterans in the real world face. And this show does tackle it sometimes. I appreciate what the Bad Batch is doing. It's basically a continuation of the Clone Wars show. And it does it kind of smoothly. I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of smooth how they went from the Clone Wars into the Bad Batch, how everything is transpiring. We see how the stuff from the Clone Wars show, how we're seeing it now in the Bad Batch, and we're seeing more of that with Season 2 coming out, with the trailers coming out, seeing more characters from the Clone Wars show, and it's basically a continuation, and that's such a great thing, because it's not disservicing the Clone Wars show, and that's what I like.
You want some soup?
8th place, we have The Mandalorian. Now, my opinions on this show have changed, because I still think, like, Season 1, like most of the episodes, are pretty slow paced. I wouldn't consider them boring. I think I remember calling Season 1 of The Mandalorian boring, and not really. It's more slow paced. It's not really my style. But I do like, for example, the 2nd episode in Season 1. It's kind of funny. But I do like it, it's kind of the miscellaneous adventures of Din Djarin and Grogu, before the main mission kicks in, which happens in Season 2. And the duo between Din Djarin and Grogu is one of the favorite duos in Star Wars. Like, they're up there with, like, Anakin and Obi-Wan, Luke and R2-D2, that duo that works so well off each other. And yeah, that's like one episode in Season 2 you say is filler, which is like the 2nd episode of that season, but a lot of it I do like. Every new character is okay. They range from being good to being okay, and you've probably already seen it already. It's one of the staples of Star Wars now, and I'm happy for it.
A lot of little things. I mean, when we saw the camera in the previous episode, there were like screws in the wall. When we see certain architecture, it's just bricks.
7th place, we have Andor. And Andor, how do I even start this? Because this may be controversial, because some people find this boring. I've seen people, say in like on social media, like, this show sucks, it's slow. And I get it. It's not one of those type of shows that everyone's gonna like. But I enjoy the show because it is a journey. And even though, yes, it's slow, I'm not going to be rewatching the show anytime soon because it is a slog to get through, but it's still good. You get to see the journey of Cassian Andor as he starts out as this guy who's in it for himself. And you see him kind of see the evil of the Empire. He literally gets sent, into a prison at one point. And you get to see him turn into the rebel that we know in Rogue One. Now, the story is not complete. There's a Season 2 of this show, but it's not coming up for, like, next couple of years. This story of these random people sacrificing everything for someone else to do the big thing, which we know is Luke Skywalker blowing up the Death Star. But You get to see the nameless people that are never mentioned again in the history of Star Wars past that point, because they did the build-up, they did the back work, you know, and you get to see that in this season, all the people who are building the Rebel Alliance, who are doing the connections to have a unified rebellion. That is just a really interesting thing that I love.
A war veteran.
6th place, we have Rebels. Yes, Rebels. You may ask, why Rebels? The first season isn't that great. Well, I like Rebels because when I first started watching Rebels, I was like, oh, this is a fine show. The characters are fine. The Grand Inquisitor in Season 1 was great. But everything was fine. In Season 2, yeah, continue that. Once the Season 2 finale began, I started loving this show. I love all the characters. Now, not everyone's gonna like all the characters. Chopper's very annoying, and he is annoying. As the show goes on, like I said, from the Season 2 finale onwards, it becomes top tier Star Wars. I feel like I'm saying that a lot. It is. And I like how the show just features the Rebels, the Ghost Crew, doing missions. And yes, a lot of episodes are filler, but the filler episodes, I feel like people are misunderstanding the filler. They're not bad filler. It's just the crew doing missions, stopping the Empire in very little ways. I love this show. Granted, I'm not gonna say this is like a god tier, like, oh my god, best anime show ever. No. But for a Star Wars show, for Star Wars fans, there are so many good moments in this show that's worth watching the filler kitty, blow up a couple of stormtroopers, no consequences show. You know what I mean?
Wow, there are all kind of manner of crazy monsters in here.
Yeah, and they added even more for the special edition.
Hey, what are you guys doing here?
5th place is Return of the Jedi. Yes, the first of the original trilogy on this list. And the reason why Return of the Jedi is 5th place is because it is a really good conclusion to the original trilogy. Yes, it starts off with Jabba and the whole rescuing Han. As a film, it's well paced. You get to, it's like, at this point in the original trilogy, the characters are so built up, the characters are so well written, that putting them in any situation, whether that be in Jabba's palace, or talking to Ewoks, or being, or confronting the Emperor, you're on board with it. It's a really good conclusion, really good film, and a lot of memorable moments, and it's just one of the best finales to a trilogy that is in film history, in my opinion.
We're just clones, sir. We're meant to be expendable.
Not to me.
4th place, we have the Clone Wars show, and I don't know how to begin to say this. The Clone Wars show is one of those shows that I love from the very beginning to the very end. I know a lot of people don't like Season 1. I feel like I'm saying that a lot, but I enjoy Season 1. Season 1 has a lot of good, underrated episodes. This show probably is the best representation of Star Wars ever. An entire generation grew up with this show. There are so many stories. Whatever prequel trilogy character you want to see, I guarantee there is a story for them. Want to go watch a Mace Windu story? Yeah, there's a couple of them. A Yoda story? Hell yeah. You want to watch, I don't know, a C-3PO and R2-D2 story? Yeah, there's that as well. Everything's here, whether it's from comedy to seriousness to political drama. There is so much storytelling here. And it's an anthology show. And it shows. And like these stories, there is a main story. And it's built up throughout the entire show beautifully. Honestly, if you've yet to see the Clone Wars show yet, go watch it.
Hello there.
General Kenobi.
3rd place, we have Revenge of the Sith. Oh boy, my favorite prequel film. This film has the best conclusion of any trilogy. It's a grand, emotional, satisfying payoff of seeing how everything turned out in the original trilogy and for the rest of Star Wars. From the moment it started to the moment it ends, you are hooked. You are enthralled. It has everything. Action, you have political drama, you have, like I said, the memes, and it's just everything's in this film. What more can I say about it? It's just a film that has everything. All the problems that were happening with the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones were mostly fixed. I could go on and on about how much I love Revenge of the Sith, but I'm going to end it off here. Go rewatch Revenge of the Sith, or go watch like a meme compilation of Revenge of the Sith, because this film is both funny and it's also kind of sad and, you know, emotional driven. Like, it's just a film that has everything.
He's heading for that small moon.
That's no moon. It's a space station.
Second place, we have A New Hope. Personally, I think this is my favorite Star Wars film, but looking at the quality, yeah, the first hour of this film is a bit slow. If you were to watch this now, for people who've never seen Star Wars, yeah, it's going to be slow and it's going to be kind of a movie killer, you know? Like, it's kind of bad then, people are going to turn it off, but I love the first hour of this film. I love the second hour of this film. Everything about this film is iconic, and I love it. I love rewatching this film. That's not nostalgia talking, because I rewatch this film all the time. The character work is amazing. Everything is just properly explained so well. I feel like I can't really add anything else to A New Hope. I mean, it's just one of the best films in cinema. I mean, yeah, the CGI stuff in the special edition is in my opinion, alright. I even like that as well, because it kind of fits the old aesthetic of the film. And yeah, I don't really, there's no negative I really give it. I mean, this changed cinema, and that's why it's my personal favorite film, but there's still one more film that we have to rank here.
The Force is with you, young Skywalker. But you are not a Jedi yet.
First place, we have The Empire Strikes Back. And when I was doing this ranking, I'm like, really? The Empire Strikes Back? Really? Number one. But I rewatched the film and I'm like, oh, that's why this is number one. Everything that you think of Star Wars is in this film. This is not only peak cinema, this is peak Star Wars. But to me, I still like watching A New Hope. I think that's a better film in my opinion, but in terms of the quality, in terms of, you know, just how it presents itself, The Empire Strikes Back is a better, well-made film. From the moment this film starts to the moment it ends, you're going to be enthralled. With The Empire Strikes Back, there's that sense that the Empire is always on you, and the heroes are always on the run. The heroes are always losing. The Empire basically won this entire film. Darth Vader is iconic, Yoda's iconic. This film is iconic. I guess I can end off saying for the rest of time and the rest of, you know, cinema history, this film is going to be known forever. You know, The Empire Strikes Back is what made Star Wars the way it is. If this film was not, you know, made the way it was and it wasn't a slam success for the, you know, company of Lucasfilm, then Star Wars wouldn't be here. It wouldn't be here making a ranking list or, you know, any of that. My childhood would be different. A lot of ours would be. So I thank everyone who made The Empire Strikes Back, and you basically made my childhood and everyone else's childhood, and I hope it makes more kids' childhoods. I hope you all enjoyed this ranking. I had a lot of fun putting this together, and like I said, I may do this again next year. I'm not too sure, but maybe I will, maybe I won't. But if this gets a lot of views and likes and comments, then maybe I will, because I had a lot of fun doing this. And I'm going to go now. If you guys enjoyed, hit the like button, subscribe, and I'm going, so goodbye everyone.